For South Asians, the phrase "what will people say" is all too familiar. What will people say if you wear that revealing outfit? What will people say if you don't pursue an advanced degree? What will people say if you marry someone outside of your religion? What will people say if you get a divorce? You can swap in any hypothetical scenario that might spur societal judgment. The variations are endless. Sahaj Kaur Kohli, a licensed therapist and founder of the online mental health community Brown Girl Therapy, knows the weight of that question well. Born to parents with Indian and Sikh roots, Kohli was raised in a predominantly white suburb in Virginia and often found the collectivism of her immigrant parents' culture at odds with the individualism of the West. She writes in her new book, But What Will People Say? Navigating Mental Health, Identity, Love, and Family Between Cultures. The differences between the two cultures became especially clear after a difficult period in college prompted Kohli to move back home. But What Will People Say? A memoir and self-help book from writer and therapist Sahaj Kaur Kohli, published on May 7. Penguin Random House. But What Will People Say? A memoir and self-help book from writer and therapist Sahaj Kaur Kohli, published on May 7. Penguin Random House. When she told her parents she was battling depression and needed to see a therapist, Kohli says they worried how others might perceive her mental health struggles and tried to manage the situation on their own. It wasn't that they weren't concerned about her, Kohli adds, they were simply conditioned to think in terms of the family unit and community, believing their daughter's depression could be seen as a failure on their part. But what will people say? We care so much about what other people will think that we forget about the people within the community or within the families who might be hurting, Kohli said in an interview with CNN. In But What Will People Say, which published May 7, Kohli explores that fear of judgment, along with other challenges that children of immigrants commonly face: shame, self-sabotaging behaviors, and the loss of cultural identity among them. Part memoir and part self-help, the book draws on Kohli's personal experiences and her work as a therapist to help children of immigrants process their emotions, improve their family dynamics, and develop a clearer sense of self. Some of Kohli's reflections and insights might resonate beyond her target audience. In the book, she opens up about her once strained relationship with her father, the academic troubles she long kept secret, and the trauma she endured, experiences that many people, children of immigrants or not, can relate to. CNN spoke to Kohli about how to deal with guilt, how conversations around mental health in the West miss cultural nuance, and how immigrant parents can better understand their children. This conversation has been edited for length and clarity. What made you want to write this book? I wanted to write this book because I knew nothing like it existed. It's something that I so desperately could have used growing up. I'm just so honored to be able to create something in a space that is predominantly white and individualistic by nature, and offer cultural nuance to the conversation of wellness. Your book focuses on your experiences growing up in two cultures: the community-oriented Indian culture of your parents and the individualist culture of the West. What were the biggest tensions between the two? That tension that I felt was every single day. I grew up with diametrically opposing values, norms, and expectations. One of those cultural systems was the Western world. At home, I was being raised in a totally different environment that had different expectations of who I was supposed to be, as an Indian daughter, as an Indian woman, as a daughter of immigrants, as a South Asian woman. What children of immigrants, Asian families, non-Western communities, and immigrant communities really center is family and relationships. We are being exposed to all of these ideas that revolve around setting boundaries, cutting people out, and thinking about yourself first. How do we learn to stick up for ourselves while also being mindful of the cultural nuances in the families and the systems that we exist in? So many of us feel as much pride and joy and rejuvenation from taking care of others and being in the roles that we play, whether it's being a daughter, sister, parent, as we do as taking care of ourselves. That is something in the self-care narratives in the Western world that we don't talk about enough. There's so much research on so many things that we just are not talking about. What's too close in a family system? What is considered dysfunctional? What is considered codependency? What is considered enmeshment and not having any boundaries? These things are very binary in the Western world, when in reality, it really does depend. There is this messy middle where things are neither good nor bad, they just are. How do we live in that messy middle? That's the ethos to all of my work. You share some very personal experiences in the book, like being sexually assaulted and taking a while to graduate from college, the kinds of experiences that children of immigrants are often taught to keep quiet. How did you get to a place where you felt comfortable being vulnerable? The process of writing this book was so healing for me. I excavated so many old wounds, stories in my inner child by revisiting parts of my life and owning them for myself. Even in writing about my college career, my editors had to push back a lot and say, "You still are not being very nice to yourself." It was a process getting to a point where I was like, do I still feel shame about the fact that it took me 12 years to graduate college? Sometimes.